What's up, Pod Pals? It is your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School, the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. This is a very special podcast audit episode. I've got my Pod Pal Bryson here from That Music Podcast, and we're going to jam out with some podcasting tips on audience growth, podcast monetization, all of the good stuff, engagement. You guys are all about the engagement. So, Bryson, welcome to the show. And you ready to dig in?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to see what we can get into today.
Yeah. So let's kick it off with my world famous 6-month question. So let's say I drop some knowledge on you today and you're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I needed to hear. And you go out and implement for 6 months and amazing things are happening. Can you paint that picture of what like really awesome momentum would look like 6 months from now?
I guess the big thing for me would be getting outbound requests from me, getting people wanting me to be on their podcast, wanting me to be in front of their audience, doing conferences, things like that. But when it actually comes to the podcast and my business in general, I would love to have consistent leads coming from my podcast and finding their way onto my email list, and then ideally lovingly in some of my paid products.
Okay. So with that first point of like, guesting more and showing up in other people's, feeds and things like that, are you doing guest episodes on your show? Like what type of content are you doing? Are you doing solo episodes, guest episodes? What's that look like?
Mostly solo episodes. Every once in a while, a guest episode here and there. Definitely a lot more guest episodes when I was first starting the podcast. But for now, most of the episodes are solo.
Okay. So I like that. I mean, that's kind of what I recommend, you being a service provider and you have programs, products, and services to sell. I like the 2/3 rule of 2/3 of your content is positioning you as the expert. So solo episodes, coaching style episodes, that's going to be super important. When you do choose to do a guest episode, I want you to be really strategic when you choose that person. Obviously, it's got to be a great fit content wise for your audience. That's just a must. But also look and go, okay, are they a podcaster also? Is this a potential relationship building springboard opportunity? I have them on my show, then I can go on their show. And if you could check both of those boxes, I'd be like, all right, this is a home run. So if you're like, a couple months from now, 2-3 months from now, you're like, all right, I'm going to launch a new program and I want to really get some guesting going. I would go out and start looking strategically, like which podcast would I really want to be on? Would they be a good fit for my show? Let's get 2 or 3 of them, maybe 1 per month leading up over the next 90-day cycle. Plant a few seeds. Let's hope to maybe create that relationship. And then let's see what happens. So is that making sense?
Yeah, that's kind of been my strategy so far. My niche of elementary music teachers is so micro niche in general. So like there's only a few other podcasts that are specifically for elementary music teachers. So I'm trying to expand a little bit, maybe into just music teachers or elementary teachers. But still, I think that's a great idea to kind of see how we can continue to build that relationship.
Yes. Yes. So when you fill out your information for me, there was something that stuck out. I was like, oh my God, like you've got to, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've got a 6,000 person email list.
I do.
That's fantastic. Like you've been working, you've got great lead magnets. So that tells me we got a great lead magnet strategy going. You're collecting emails. But you're like, but I'm only getting a few hundred downloads out of these, I got 6,000 people on my list, only a few hundred downloads. So what is your email marketing strategy right now? Like we're getting people on the list. Are they getting into an automated funnel? Are you sending out any like weekly newsletter content? What's that look like?
We're in the beginning process of developing a couple of funnels. But right now the majority of my list is just kind of in the general list. So that each week they'll get an email about the podcast, kind of giving a little bit of the background, inviting them to listen and share and that kind of stuff.
Okay. And with that, first off, kudos to you for doing a weekly email. I really like, you're doing all the things that I like to have people do. So that's your A+ student so far. So, and being, in the education space, of course, makes sense. So with that weekly email, what is the open rate looking like?
Let's see. Typically fairly high. I think by the end of like a couple days after, because a lot of my emails go to teacher email, so it takes a little bit, is like 40 some plus %, which is
that's
pretty
really
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. And Are you adding any like personal stuff in there, or is it pretty much just promoting the episode?
So usually it's kind of talking about like why the issue is important, why I decided to talk about it, why I think it's an important topic in education, that kind of stuff. It's not just like, here, go listen to this, but it's like giving a little background as to why they should listen.
Okay. Okay. So really, I think the issue we got to figure out is how can we get these 6,000 people like wanting more and going into the podcast and going, I want to binge on these episodes. So, I mean, do you think that you're giving them too much in that news? And they're like, oh, I've got all the information right here. I don't necessarily need to go and listen to this episode. Do you think that's part of the problem or no?
I don't think so. I think my assumption for the biggest problem is that a lot of the emails that I have, probably about 40 to 50% are their school emails. So even if they were to click on it on their school email, it's probably not going to be on their phone. It's probably not going to, there's the friction of having them open up their phone, open up their podcast player, because the reality is they won't have, rarely will they have time to listen to it at that moment on their computer.
Interesting. This is a unique predicament that we've got here. This is interesting. Okay. So some things that you can consider doing. One would be like some sort of like a fan favorite episode recommendation in the newsletter. Like I've done these on the audio, but that's not going to serve us any purpose here. I mean, it'd still be cool, but like maybe have people just do a little written quote, or maybe if you go on social media or in the email, like, hey, would love, or they could submit audio and you put it on the show and you put it as text in the newsletter. But I want to give them a reason to listen to the current episode and another one. You know what I'm saying? And just like create that little chain of binge listening habit. Or maybe you create a recommendation if you're like, okay, and if you like this one, here are 2 other episodes that are related to this topic that you may also enjoy, and have that kind of at the end so that they're going in and going, all right. And maybe even using language, like you're actually speaking to these people knowing that they're on their school email, and be like, I get it that you're on the school email. Make a mental reminder to go on your phone and download this episode and this episode so you can listen to it on your drive home or something like that.
Yeah.
Like just like really get in their space, and that's going to make them feel heard. Like, oh, he gets it. He's, I'm in the middle. I'm just in between classes, or I'm on my break period or whatever. And I've got to just knock out, I'm getting a little bit of schoolwork or whatever. I mean, I don't know what they do. But like get in that space and write it from that viewpoint, if you think that's kind of the log jam. So any sparks fly in there?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Be explicit about it. My kind of question off of that is, we've been experimenting a little bit with what we link to. Do we link to the iTunes version? Do we link to it hosted on my site? Have you seen any, what's your gut reaction on where we should be linking to?
That is a great question. That's a great thing to test too, Bryson. I mean, I tend to skew towards the Apple link just because most listeners are on Apple. So I'm like, chances are they've got an iPhone and they can hit that link. If not, like just a podcast player, wherever you have like your podcast player app or your podcast player page on your website, that's another great one where like I've got a page where I've got the latest episodes, like, the links to Spotify, Apple, all the things, but then I've got recommendations as well. So that's another thing. If you have a link, if you set up a customized page, that's kind of almost like target these teachers that are on their work emails again and go like, it's almost like a simplified guide to becoming a super fan of your show. You know what I'm saying? So maybe it's got the most up-to-date links for the newest episode, but also it's got like top 3 list for this issue and then top 3 list for this, and you have direct links there as well. So I kind of categorized topical, organized episodes so they can binge like, oh, I really, need to shore up my music game on this. Boom, boom, boom. I got 3 episodes I can get started with. Is that making sense?
Yeah, I like that, kind of giving them a dedicated place to go that makes it more of an incentive to do the extra step to download it or to get it on their phone for the drive home.
Yeah. I mean, just like what you said right there. So you can get it on the phone for the drive home. Like I would just start using that verbiage. Like just so like you can create that memory pattern of, oh, now I am driving home and I hear Bryson always talking about downloading these episodes for the drive home, so that's, I think like we just have to train these people to like, that's when they listen to your show, like, okay, drive home, that's my time with Bryson. And that's, you're going to get in that life pattern. That's the power of podcasting. That's one of the unique superpowers, is we can actually insert our content into their life routines. So I would really, maybe even you do like some sort of social media challenge, like when you listen to the show on your drive home, before you start driving, take a screenshot in your car, post it on your Instagram stories and tag me, and we're going to give away something, or
I like that
we're
idea.
going to shout you out, and just make it a thing. Like, so it's like, the drive, this is the podcast the teachers listen to on their drive home. It's kind of like, I've got my little taglines of, I help podcasters live their show like a hobby and build it like a business. Like, you could be like, this is the show that music teachers listen to on their drive home from after a long day at work, or whatever. Like, that's, you just claim that space. And so I think if we do that, train them to do that, we mention it in the newsletter, enter our drive home selfie, contest of the week or the month or whatever. And, screenshot you getting ready to drive home and listen to the episode, tag me, and like just getting that built up. It creates some community engagement. I think that could be pretty fun.
Yeah, I like that, because I mean, when I talk to people that listen to the podcast, they're super fans, and like they feel like they're seen. They're like, oh my goodness, I needed to hear this. So I feel like if I get more people to listen to it, I think that would just create so much more impact. And but I like the idea of giving them an incentive to share about it and talk about that incentive.
Yeah. And I would just lean into that, especially with like your solo episodes. And so when you make that ask, like, give them the why behind the ask. If you're going to like ask them to post a selfie and be like, and I'm doing this because I want to shine a light on people like us. Like, we need to have more of this type of content out there. We need to let people know this is a space for people like us, and like, just lean into that. And that way they see it not only as like, oh, I get to do this contest. It's like, I'm helping Bryson out. I'm helping spread the word. And if they're really a super fan of the show, like, they're going to step up and do that. And I think that they'll think it's pretty cool if you like reshare it or tag them. What I would do, if somebody screenshots it, does the selfie, tags you, I would reshare it. And then I would send them a voice note, like on, I'm on Instagram DMs or whatever, and be like, Bryson, what's up? I'm so happy that you shared this out. Have you listened to the latest episode? Like, start a conversation. Like, have you listened to the latest episode? What was your top takeaway? What topic do you need me to cover? And just stir it up, man. Stir up that engagement, initiate it. And that's always a winning strategy. Doing voice DMs is a powerful strategy. Now,
for sure.
Social media wise, where are your people mainly hanging out? Are we on LinkedIn, or what do you think?
Instagram's the main place that we kind of chill out.
Okay, so that's great. So voice DMs, all that stuff is, voice DMs just got a lot better, because they used to, you record it, and as soon as you lift your thumb off, it just send it automatically. And now there's a little like send arrow, so you can record it and hit the X or the arrow. I always had to like specify, because people, like, I would, talk about it on the show, like, message me, and I'd get all these, hey Adam, and then they didn't realize that hey Adam, got sent automatically, and then they'd be like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize that would send, message number 2. So yeah, now it's really upgraded. People, if they listen to your show and they hear your voice all the time, and then all of a sudden you're saying their name and you're sending them a direct message that's just for them, just you and them, this little private moment, like, it's special. Imagine somebody whose podcast you listen to all the time. Like, if Amy Porterfield sends me a voice message, I'm freaking the hell out. I'm like, oh my God, they're like, super fan, rocket ship. I just wrote on that one. So like, it's legit. There's always really positive feedback from that you just take some time out of your day just to, in the world of AI and automation and VAs from the Philippines and all this stuff, like, those all have their space. But when you take time to have a human connection with somebody, it makes a big difference. You stand out. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a really good avenue to kind of just think of like my audience. We're typically the only music teachers in our building, so we feel automatically we feel like we're stuck on Music Teacher Island. So I think that's a great way to kind of connect a little bit while also building the podcast app.
Okay. So you just gave me my next idea for you. Um, the community style episode. So what I'm doing with my Pod Pal Zoom parties, where I invite my listeners on for a group discussion, Music Teacher Island, man. Like you gotta do a group, like a group panel where you invite music teachers on, and these are obviously prospective clients for you as well. You got to call it the Music Teacher Island meetup or something like that. Like, we're the only ones in the school, but we get each other. Come on over to Music Teacher Island. You're not alone. And you have a topic that you teach on. You have some group discussion around that, group feedback. And then maybe, they get to shout out their IG handle or something like that so they can do some shameless self-promotion. I think that would be fun.
I love that idea. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Like that you could do swag with that on there, like create some sort of image, Music Teacher Island, copy the Survivor logo or something like that, slap that on a shirt, give them away in IG. But I would just look for any opportunity to stir up engagement with your audience. That's going to help as well. And especially with these with the email list people, if you can get them I would just test different things. Like, okay, maybe we can try submitting audio for the show and see if that gets people, like using a SpeakPipe link. Maybe you do something on Instagram where you're like, hey, come on over to Instagram and follow me there for, this selfie share it out challenge. And what I'd be doing is as new people pop into your Instagram followership, I'd be voice DMing them too. I'm like, hey, thanks for following my account. Are you a music teacher? Are you new? How many years experience do you have? What questions do you have? I would just hammer them with love and the technique that I call friending them into submission. Like you just friend them and friend them and friend them and just keep showing value. And then you're their person. You're their go-to expert in this space. Put up Instagram story polls. What topic would you love to see me cover next on the show? Option A, B, C, or D. And then whatever they choose, send them a voice DM. Like just look for interaction opportunities and spend 10 minutes a day. Each DM can only be a minute long and they cut you off. So, 10 times 10 a day, 5 days a week, you're going to be able to kick 50 messages out there. And that's like 50 lines in the water for super fan opportunities. And really, I think that way we'll get them converting over into the culture of the show. Music Teacher Island, they come on. I mean, imagine those people coming on. You got 10, 15 music teachers on there. You'll have people that come back every single time you do it. If you do it, like I recommend doing it once a month, something like that. And all of a sudden they're creating content with you. I like all of this. You can invite people from the newsletter onto Music Teacher Island, like all that stuff. I'm down, man. I'm in.
Yeah, I really like that idea. What I've kind of really been kind of thinking about how to implement a style similar to what we're doing now, because I love the coaching part. That's one of my favorite parts is being able to just talk with other teachers and talk through what they're struggling with and what their strengths are and how they can play on their strengths. And it's been slow to get the uptake from the audience.
Okay. Well, obviously I love the coaching style episode idea. It's my bread and butter here. And it's what I teach, more often than any other strategy as far as like, especially for service providers. Now, I was going to ask you this with your clients. Are you teaching people how to get started as music teachers, or are you more of a music teacher career upgrade coach, or a little bit of both?
So I'm more for the people like a lot of short answer. A lot of the undergrad programs, we learn to teach pre-K through 12th grade general music, band, choir, orchestra. So the elementary stuff tends to kind of get the back burner. So that's kind of where I'm at, is people that are maybe new to the profession or maybe new to the elementary age, or maybe they've just been working and they feel like they're spinning. So it's more of those that are either already in college about to start or those that are already teaching.
Okay. And then just like resources, ideas for leveling up, stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah. The content specific professional development is kind of our bread and butter.
Okay. Perfect. So yeah, I mean, I think that with a coaching style episode, you need to go out and start fishing in those waters a little bit, kind of asking, who do you know that's getting ready to graduate and go into elementary,
Oh, I like
music,
that.
music education, and just start asking around. I mean, even if you have connections with like universities or, whatever, like something like that, I would start and be like, I am a professional consultant in this space. I've got a podcast. I'm inviting people to come on to help me create content. Um, yeah, I think because then you're talking to your exact ideal listener and your exact ideal potential client at the same
Yeah.
time, building relationships there, creating content for your show. But getting started with the coaching style episodes, that's the toughest part, man. Like it's because a lot of people just put a call to action out on the show and nobody does it because you haven't done one yet.
Yeah.
And there's no social proof of how cool it is. Right. So when you start out, you can grab a few current clients or people that that are in the space that would be a good fit, and just kind of use those for the first 2 or 3 so that you do have social proof. Use the call to action in the intro and outro of how to sign up for one of these style episodes. Don't call it free coaching, that they're not going to take it seriously. So some like elementary music career jam session or something like that. Like
Yeah.
I want this like professional leveling up sounding. But so once you get a few episodes out there, you're using the call to action to advertise how to sign up, kind of fishing in the waters of, doing, I mean, there's all types of opportunities with those universities where, I mean, even if you were able to speak, like you've got a podcast, you are in a media and content creator in this space. Can you link up with the university and speak to their students, their grad students or
Yeah.
whatever? And then your call to action there is like, hey, I would love for you all to listen to my show. Here's all the information on that. But you can also come on my show. What do you guys think about that? And then you're pulling them on the show and away we go. So I like that a lot, man.
Yeah. I definitely have some ideas spinning in my head.
Yes. Now, name wise, what's clicking there? Like, what do you think? Like, we can't call it free coaching. That's my only rule. What, anything popping up?
I think it's something like classroom checkup or pedagogy audit or something like that. Yeah. I think,
Nice.
yeah, I got
Nice.
some
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah. The word audit works well. Ramp up, boost session, like that type of like action word. But I'm partial to audit because it's serious, because people like, if I'm getting tax audited, I get that tingling in my spine. I better get serious about this. So yeah, I like that a lot. So yeah, just kick around some ideas on something that brings that like intrigue, but also a seriousness level that they're like, I need to show up for this thing because this is real value. So yeah, I think that's a nice call to action. If you get invited to speak on other shows, speak on stages, that's something like I use my podcast Audit call to action. Like a year ago when I was on Clubhouse a lot, I would call it a collaborative call to action. I'd be speaking and be like, hey, I would love for anybody to come on my show. If you are a podcaster that's, not quite where you want to be with downloads, monetization, or audience engagement, you fit the bill. I'd love to invite you on my show for a podcast audit. Here's a link to sign up. And it just gets people in our world that are ready to take action. And they're kind of the ideal fit listener. So that makes sense?
For sure.
Outstanding. Well, dude, I think we covered quite a bit here. I really like, you've got an asset with that email list and that open rate. So now we just have to finesse it and really just go, okay, how do we get these people to go that next level deeper with engagement and hopping onto the show, hopping onto your IG platform? And so I would just kind of look at the podcast, the email list, the IG, and like, how do we just make it all, like each serves their own unique flavor and it's a component in the overall brand where they kind of want to be a little bit of a part of all of it, and then they're hanging out with Bryson all the time and they're ready to, you're their go-to person as their expert. So sound good?
Sounds great to me.
All right. Make sure you shout out your brand, man. If people want to go check out your show, get into your world there, where do they go, Bryson?
So the podcast is called That Music Podcast. You can learn about it and everything else I do at thatmusicteacher.com.
Outstanding. All right. And if you all want to be just like my pod pal Bryson here and come on for a podcast audit, head on over to the website, podcastingbusiness.school. And with that, pod pals, I'm going to send you out into the world, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We will see you next time.